So guys, before even jumping into some of the combos that you already know to kind of help you prep in case you got an event coming up and that's coming up, or you're taking a break after that and you just wanted to refresh it on all of the Drytron stuff, the Starcross Meeting, which is a card that is going to come out relatively soon. I believe it's in Darkwing Blast or something to that effect directly thereafter. I got it from Alan McTavish. But this card, being able to essentially dump off of a card like Beatrice and then set up a card like Magician of Black Chaos, essentially to be a new school urgent ritual art to skip your opponent's entire turn. I feel like that's absolutely insane. As far as the Drytron stuff that you already do know, there's definitely a numerous amount of variants, and this isn't even all of them. This is 4 of about 7 or 8. I could mention many more, like Gus Kraken, like Necros, being able to use Kaleidoscope to set up Brionic plays, to set up a Schism play. There is so many variants that it would take me all day to get to it. All of them have their pros, all of them have their weaknesses, and then obviously that's without mentioning pre-prep and how dumb some of the card advantage could be inside of that version. However, it loses very hard to Dark Ruler and Droplet. What may not lose quite as hard to Dark Ruler and Droplet is the Vanity version because, well, let's face it, combining Magic Key as well as Vanity's Ruler really adds up to something extremely positive as far as board presence and being able to, if you're going first, dominate game ones, especially if you're winning dice roll. Usually with Drytron, you can just play through people's board anyway, but having the Vanity's Ruler version being the weakest going second and the most powerful going first, I definitely feel like it's something that you need to be aware of. You also need to be aware of a card like Angel 07, essentially a new tech that most definitely can help you in specific matchups where a card may not lose to a Vanity's Ruler, like Fluandereeze, for example. Angel 07 be basically a Majesty's Fiend and a searchable fairy off of Benton that you could also add. As far as some of the baseline combos that you should already know, Alpha, Zeta, going into Fafnir, dumping a Gamma, and then extending past that as fast as you can, guys. I feel like you always want to get Ruler on the field as quickly as possible before 5 summons. It should happen almost every single time. Additionally, add Artifact Lancia, and then after that, you could add a card like Orange Light, for example. I would always try to add either the Orange Light if I have an additional fairy and I need another play to go through after that, or the Lancia first if I'm already pretty good and covered. This specific combo, guys, I'm covering additionally having the Magic Key Battle Buster card inside of your hand, Alpha Zeta, set up the same way, getting the Ritual Spell and Vanity's Ruler into your hand and dumping the Gamma once again, and then from there tributing on the 5th summon for the Vanity's Ruler to again search a card like, well, let's face it, either the Orange Light or the Lancia, again setting up the same type of stuff. And if you open up additional names, you could also add IP Masquerena to this board. Instead of just having a Link Karibo, an additional Delta inside of this hand, one of the Prosperities being an additional name, easily helps you to set up a Masquerena instead of just a Link Karibo, because a Link Karibo is just okay. But a lot of times they can't even play at all through Vanity's Ruler with a counter trap. It's just not possible. Also, again, keep in mind that having an Angel 07 with a counter trap behind it is pretty strong as well. As far as this combo, guys, this is the Amorph Factor baseline, which again is pretty much take out Vanity's Ruler and just specifically go every single time for tributing off Ben 10 and then getting to Diviner, and Diviner getting you to your Amorph Factor Pain. If you do open a Ben 10 as well as an Alpha as well as a Zeta, then you just get to the Amorph Factor Pain even sooner, and you're not really playing any other rituals except for you're trying to get to the setup of either ending on an Orange Light, or a Mirage Lights, as well as a Masquerena, as well as the Amorph Factor Pain. Sometimes your boards are going to be weird, or your fairy stuff may get stopped. Maybe it gets asked on one of the Ben 10s or something to that effect. Some kind of way you lose card advantage in some kind of capacity. I almost always try to at least get the Amorph Factor Pain out there because it's going to obviously skip phases and ruin certain matchups like Sword Soul, etc., etc. But the more names, the more stuff that you get to go to on your opponent's turn, as well as having a Mirage Lights like that to blow your opponent out anyway, just in case they try to get it off the field. You're going to have a negate, you're going to have an additional gate if you have a Masquerena, and then having these two sitting next to each other, essentially IP protecting a Morph Vector Pain, and a Morph Vector Pain, because they don't have a battle phase, protects IP Masquerena. Therefore, if you're in main phase 2, I feel like this is the strongest version sometimes as far as events are concerned, because if you just do that all day, or you have a card that can immediately blank cards out when it comes out, it's something relatively strong to mention as well, guys. Clearly, we all know about all of the Cyber Angel stuff. Playing through boards with Natasha is what you do going second. That's not really something that you have to cover. You guys already know that. Going into as many Ben 10s, getting to Ida 10, getting to Natasha, dark ruling them, dropletting them, baiting out effects, baiting out negates to then steal their monsters and beat the crap out of them with it. That's how good Drytron is right now. I really feel like this is a strong contender to win Nats. We'll see if this video is obviously coming out beforehand. We'll see what it does as Nats happens. But again, guys, as fast as possible. Very shout out to Paul Pelican. Very, very important to note that in some versions, in most versions that are playing Megaliths, you want 2 OPLs and 1 full. Some of the older versions, like the Vandred version, you still kind of have to play it the opposite way just because the combo lines don't quite work quite the same way. But that's kind of something that still kind of needs to be tweaked a little bit just because people haven't played Vandreds in so long. But again, guys, this is the standard setup for Megaliths that so many people know, whether that be to add a Valk card like that into the deck, add additional cards like the artifact stuff, or just flat out having a Lancia in hand, a Magic Key counter trap behind an Abyss Dweller, a Baron being able to negate another card, while also not being able to dark ruler this with a Bathor as a wave behind that. These are all things that you got to consider, guys. Megatron, the Megalith version, is very, very nuts, and it's definitely going to probably improve as we go forward with a lot of new cards that are going to come out. The Vandred version hasn't been visited in a very long time, but it still exists. It's still about getting to Nova, as well as getting to the Battle Lord itself to then get to a Curious, because, well, let's face it, if you have Battle Lord as well as Anima as well as Link Kariba, you're going to get to a Curious. And if you mill something crazy like a Gamma off of the Curious effect, well, you're just in good shape. I feel like this version obviously just plays Manju a lot better and gives you need more extra deck space, so you don't have space for the Diviner and the Herald. Therefore, if you have the Manju stuff, you basically are covered in some kind of way, in some kind of fashion, by having, well, let's look at it, a Tornado Dragon or a Dweller that you get to end on. It's all relatively insane and definitely something that you got to add to it. But I definitely feel like this version is something real as well. But you don't necessarily need the artifact stuff anymore, which is kind of crazy. Last but not least, we're obviously talking about the Paul Pelican version. He's kind of been messing around with it. He's kind of stepped back from doing videos, still the homie, you know, he's just kind of stepped back from the game for a little bit. But I wanted to feature one of his brilliant ideas, which is that the Splite Link, Splite Elf will be inside of the deck. If they don't hit a lot of the coverage that this deck, they're not going to hit any of this stuff. They're going to bring out Splite, and Drytron can use it to their advantage. I'm trying to think of a nicest way to get that across. Yes, we can 100%, if you're playing this deck, use Splite Elf, as you'll see here in a second, obviously with the dagger plays that you already know, activating stuff, triggering stuff, and then linking off into the Splite Elf to then point at stuff like, well, Baron, maybe an additional copy of a card like Mirage on the field as well, depending on where your placement is, and being able to, on your opponent's turn, Baron special by Baron leaving the field and pulling the scythe back, or additionally having another combo where you get to lock them out in another type of capacity. It's just remains to be seen, and that's without even mentioning the Geordie lock that people have been getting their head taken off as far as setting up anti-spell and numerous other stuff. As far as the variants, guys, there's a lot more to talk about. You guys remember Justin Singh was smacking the living shit out of people, pardon my language, but he was smacking people at events, at YCSs, because set rotation, Ritual Sanctuary has obviously been revealed as another power field spell that can help you get another Benton into your hand. You can obviously slip in Mystic Minds inside of a version like that, but for the Vandred version that hasn't been seen in a very long time, I still feel like it's possible. I don't really feel like mine has changed. I don't really feel like this one is the most restrictive as far as what you can and can't play. But it's definitely something that you have to experiment with just because nobody has seen it in so long. You maybe need to add the smaller Slayer card, but that again becomes a brick. You can play Paul Pelican's version of playing double scythe because you have multiple ways, as well as a Lancier's protection from DD Crow and Called by the Grave, and so on and so forth, from being stopped as far as bringing that artifact scythe out in some kind of way. And before Anaconda got hit, it was literally immune to droplets. So this is definitely something that you may want to look back into. There's just so many versions that I can't spend all day on each one of them. As far as the Megatron version, when you start thinking about having artifacts next to magic-y stuff, you start getting bricky. Valk is even a brick itself. So you may or may not need this card, but if you are playing it and you're not playing Manju, then you're going to easily have an additional body onto the field. The more effective version is relatively simple to understand. It's easy to get it to 40. I usually play 41 in real life just because it helps your siding patterns clearly and obviously. And I just got first place with this and did well in the OTS event. I haven't really played in any higher tier events. I've just been way too busy. And then the Vanity version is just amazing as well, just coming straight out of the box. This would be the most noob friendly one. If you're really trying to learn a lot of the deck, you're trying to learn Drytron, this would be the one that I would start with. Guys, there is so much more that I could talk about with Drytron. I hope all of these baselines and all of these different variants, as well as stuff that is coming out in the future, helps you in some kind of capacity. And I'm out, guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Pegasus signing out. Arrivederci.